Hello, everybody. And now I'm very happy to have my very dear friend, Saša Nabergoj from Ljubljana on the floor today to as a guest speaker for our the project we are running now, the Daire Artist-in-Residence Program, which is funded by European Union and Turkish government. And we've been having a series of online programs, and now we are wrapping up the whole project. And now, as a guest speaker, I'm so proud to introduce my very good friend, Saša Nabergoj. And she has been working for SCCA Association. She was a director. That was when we have met, and we had wonderful cooperations with the K2 and SCCA. Thanks to Saša for all these connections. And actually, it was, I guess, 2011, Saša, when we were both SCCA and K2, was a part of this huge on-air project, which was initiated by trans artists from Holland, thanks to dear Maria Turlings. And that was when we met first time, and then we realized that we had a lot to share. And that was the beginning of our wonderful collaboration. And we had artists from Slovenia, we had artists in Ljubljana, and then Saša, I'm so very much thankful to Saša when she accepted to be the curator for the Port İzmir 3 as well. So we have done a lot together. And Saša, through SCCA, of course, and also her personal curatorial experiences too, has been into artist in residency experiences also. So I'm so proud to introduce now my dear friend Saša Nabergoj as the key speaker of this project, which we are wrapping up. Thank you, Saša, for accepting our invitation. And I don't want to steal your time. Please have the floor.
Thank you, Ayşegül. It feels a bit weird after all this residency mini-ones in Izmir that I'm addressing you like that. It's this kind of new reality that we have to embrace, understand, and incorporate in the way of our working. But still, you know, I'm home in Ljubljana, actually even self-quarantined for the first day, and giving an address like this through virtual space instead of spending at least a week in Izmir, getting back to discussions with all these interesting curators, artists, other people from cultural world, and even other worlds, and thinking about potential new endeavors. But still, it's at least good to be here, to be part of it. And thank you, Ayşegül, for the opportunity again. Somehow I feel it's natural that we are the ones who are opening up a discussion on residencies, which are actually like the most fundamental way of networking, especially as knowing you and the way how you work, your modus operandi has always been networking. But networking is a kind of a word that somehow got a negative, I would say, or more too common meaning, being misused for the case of the many European applications or other applications. But in reality, as our friend René Rusian nicely put it, it's actually careful knitting nets between people, which, if I can say in other words, is what we do is we bring together people we think that could work well together. And then after doing what we do, we wait and see what happens. And that's, I think, it's really most fundamental of both of the modus operandi that we share, and why we started this endeavor almost 10 years ago, and we're still continuing it. Of course, a little bit reformed, but still. And I wanted to use this opportunity that you nicely gave me to discuss the impact of the curatorial residencies on the cities themselves. Because I strongly believe that the cultural identity of spaces is built is constructed from many segments that sometimes complete, often overlap, or even can contradict each other, that it gradually forms through times in a complex relationship between people and environment. And that the invisible stitches that glue together a place, such unique as Izmir, for example, and its multiple identities, again, so typical for Izmir, and that this richness, are very often tackled by the world of art. And I strongly believe, actually, that the artists are the one who, with their practices, but especially with modus operandi, with the way how they work, offer another view or shed a different light on things that have been perhaps overlooked, neglected, or even forgotten in the society. So, in other words, artist residencies that bring together artists, curators, and thinkers from the realm of contemporary art and other realms to a specific place can therefore play a very active role in rethinking and reshaping the prevailing structures, especially as again, I believe that vital arts contribution seem to push towards losing the fear of the time, of the vacuum space in between where the shifts can happen. In other words, art is always the one to be avant-garde, to look outside of the boxes. So how then a local context, such as Izmir or Ljubljana even, can be reconceptualized by the visitors, by the contemporary invasion actually of visitors? I believe that carefully selected individuals always bring with them very different knowledge, topics, even strategies. They can be constitutive, they can be enhancing, disturbing even, or just stimulating. And I will share with you two cases. One very familiar, Izmir, and one not that much familiar, but with many similar traits, a small town, Celje, in Slovenia. One scenario in Celje that I know well, and the other one in Izmir that I actually instigated with you, Ayşegül. So first we look at the scenario embedded in a small city of Celje. Of course, smallness have to be measured in numbers when a Slovenian is discussing things like that in Turkey. Celje is the third biggest Slovene city, which means it has almost 40,000 inhabitants. So just to give you a perspective. So Celje is this kind of a small but big city in Slovenia, and the cultural, what I witnessed in the last 20 years is how the cultural context of this city has changed radically from this kind of sleepy traditional place to a vibrant and culturally very strong, but still small town. So about 20 years ago, the Center for Contemporary Arts in Celje started putting together a very ambitious program that was composed of different parts. One, quite important, were research and exhibition projects that made an historical analysis of the local art scene through the important decades of the 70s and 80s. Exhibitions and publications actually contextualize and added to the prevailing art history of the recent past, but they crucially contributed also to the present, bringing local artists wider recognition. This type of in-depth curatorial work in the center of the city functioned as a catalyst, creating and providing a stimulating context for the others to self-organize within or just become actively engaged. It also brought new potential, empowering those who previously felt the need to relocate to bigger cities, Ljubljana or Istanbul, for example. So the program was composed of several formats to address and communicate specific local needs and issues, parallel to the research and exhibition projects that focused on local issues and local art history. An extensive international exhibition program gradually brought our interesting art and curatorial practices to Celje, slowly building up the audience and local art practice and gently introducing the vocabulary of contemporary art into quite a traditional scene. The artists in residency they created as well, Air Celje, followed the overall process of empowering the local art scene and enabled a more intense international infusion of diverse artistic and curatorial practices. And this proved to be a crucial element in a gradual shift in the respective local cultural milieu. It also focused strongly on artistic and curatorial research processes and shed light on tactics and strategies the artists used by the artists and curators. So this provided the local audience with the necessary insight into the working methods of art professionals and facilitated a way of deciphering the final outcome. Well, you know how contemporary art is very often understood and looked upon as being too intellectual or not understood well enough. I find it quite surprising in a way. I believe that people actually who are saying these kind of things are the people who are taking all the cooking classes, all the classes possible in today's society, but believing they can grasp contemporary art just by their ordinary knowledge from a different schools. So the effort that needs to be put in art, which is intellectual in a way, is a little bit underestimated. But still, with this kind of projects, I believe you are slowly cooking the frog, slowly showing how the art practices are actually embedded in the kind of a context of historical significance, historical avant-garde, historical ways of working, but also very much out of the box with contemporary way of life. And that's usually the problem, because usually they are creating this kind of a strange thing when people don't feel comfortable because they don't know everything. But to go back to Celia, this connection with the locals and this aim to try to decipher complex contemporary art issues in a simple but not simplified language also contributed to the success of the residencies in interlinking art with the local society. Especially what was quite important for me was that these residencies actually reach outside of the art world, explicitly fostering an enabling situation of potential exchange between artists, between curators and people who had no idea really about contemporary art. And this actually is bringing me to the second scenario, the one, of course, that you know quite well, because I will be talking a little bit about the Port Izmir 3, where I really had this idea that I wanted to bring together, and idea that was actually very nicely made possible by you, because with your incredible network of different people from very different disciplines who could really be thinking about the same topic from very different knowledges and angles, but were open for working together. So what I wanted to do after visiting Izmir, with your help, with your opening into this kind of cultural scene, I realized that I just wanted to bring together artists and specialists from various disciplines. So from urban historians, oceanographers, philosophers, curators, even physics, critics, sociologists, fashion, industrial designers, landscape architects, who all share, that was important, similar affinities, who were all engaged in similar topics, but of course approached them from different ways. And when I started to work on the concept of the third International Contemporary Triennial, that's quite important to stress, I think, because I think that for Izmir, it functions as the same way of catalyst as the program I was just discussing before in Celje. So actually bringing contemporary, really top contemporary art to the city to show good examples, but on an emancipatory level, to bring local artists to work with them. So in Izmir, so what I wanted to do is really to show how you can contribute from different disciplines. And when we started back then, in almost 10 years ago, I realized I really want to show the potential also of artistic practices that are based on research and engagement in social and political fields when they operate on emancipatory level in knowledge production. Of course, as the triennial, as you remember, was done in my modus operandi, which means a lot of complications for a lot of people who were involved, because we just don't live our life to be easy, but nice, I would say. And I follow that principle also when I'm curating. So I didn't structure the triennial in a format of a big single exhibition. It would be much easier to do it, I know, but more like a series of smaller events. And many of them included research residency format. And to develop it specifically for the needs of the local community, partly enhancing some of the most infusing practices, I believed could shift the rather small art scene of Izmir toward a more complex one. So my own curatorial work was actually, the process itself was actually structured quite specifically in a format of series of intense residencies. I remember, so 7 days each every 2 months, but of course for non-Turkish listeners, 7 days in Izmir meant, I'm sorry, the phone. 7 days meant really 24 hours per day. So in Izmir, I have never met such intense, thanks to you again for your orchestrating and making it happen. So many interesting people with such great ideas that could discuss them till like 3 o'clock in the morning. That's something that usually you don't have in Slovenia. But when, after meeting all these people, actually, the decision to make this kind of structure was developed. And also what I wanted to really do is I wanted to bring together, as we started, different people who could work with different tools and different strategies on a similar topic. So 5 fieldworks were created in order to show how strategies and tactics that artists develop within their practices could actually represent a valuable contribution to a change of, let's say, general thought. So leading to the changes in rethinking how we live. And I was especially interested in generating synergies between 2 quite, at least seemingly different work procedures. So scientific methodology on one side and artistic methodology. So scientific, which is based usually on specialization, and artistic, which is based on the principle of bricolage, as French said. So artists often work as bricoleurs, and by doing that, actually manage to solve various tasks and problems, mainly because they're not specialists, but resourceful when using different tools they find, often applying them without knowing or even caring on how to properly use them, without knowing the instructions. And sometimes, because of that, they manage to reach incredible solutions that are only possible when you think outside of the box. So this approach, when joined by counterparts, in this case scientific methods on the emancipatory level, is capable of creating genuine interdisciplinary collaboration and opening different perspectives in the reading of the ordinary and expected. So this was the case, for example, of all the 5 fieldworks, but I would argue the most specifically by the group Deep Blue. Because Deep Blue was composed of various individuals from art, culture, and science who considered the sensitivity of the sum of the aquatic ecology linked to Izmir by raising questions that are found to be, of course, locally relevant, but global as well, of course. So Deep Blue, just to be a bit more precise, spent 1 month of intense residency that brought together a new media artist from Slovenia with a local photographer, underwater photographer, a physicist, oceanographers, as well as an artist working in the medium of traditional Islamic art. And for the oceanographers, for example, they had no previous knowledge really much on the contemporary art, but found it quite effective when different experts engaged in the same topic. So they were quite open for discussion, I must say that. And in this case, the topic was immortality of the jellyfish, still very relevant today. And I'm quite happy to see that the group has further, after the Port Izmir, they have further developed their collaborations in many ways through exchanges and interest in new knowledge. And the platform seemed to allow for all of them to contribute to an emancipatory position, creating a very traditional collaborative project when each presented their field and then slowly learned about each other's as well as the actual format of working together. And the intense collaborations, as I hope you remember, at least the ones who are watching it from Turkey, Izmir, was presented in a separate fieldwork exhibition, the Archive Visualized, that took part parallel to the main, of course, triennial exhibition and even in the same space. To conclude, I strongly believe that residencies, when focused on tailor-made situations and based on research, can intervene into the local context and make the invisible tissue of the city visible in both symbolic terms and as well as in the reality. The diverse collaborations between artists and experts in different fields have the potential to shed light on important topics for the city. But more important, establishing platform for interdisciplinary collaborations that would continually bring knowledge and skills to the city. Again, not just the product, but the way of thinking, so the process. And even more important, I really strongly believe the potential of the contemporary art world that has for establishing operational models that are based on cooperation through mutual and respectful exchange of knowledge. And this could lead us to implement a responsible work methodology with principles that could serve us as a case of good practice when negotiating the New World Order, which is currently being experienced as a really breakneck speed. So with that, I would love to conclude, maybe just adding that I really hope that we can again practice all the theory in physical space when time will allow us, and to continue building up on what we planted almost a decade ago. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, Ayşegül, for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Saša, so much, and I'm so happy to go over the Port İzmir experiences, and that was also for me a very important experience, of course. And now with this project, the residency project that we did in 9 cities in Turkey, I always feel like we do like field works in these cities as well, because it's very important, as you mentioned, to integrate into the city, know more about, and then carry what with you, whatever the artist carries with them into the city as well. So there is an exchange, a very important exchange, which builds up on both sides. And also we created this connections that would end up, which did end up with a collaborative work as well. And I think, and now the collaborative work is also very important. And residencies, artist and residency programs are important platforms to create this collective working space and like a fieldwork research opportunity for the artists as well. So I think art, yeah, as you say, like production is like a reflex for an artist always, but the most important is the procedure itself. So the way the artist goes through, if that could be visible, that's precious. So I remember what we've been through, you know, for this Port İzmir 3 as well, how to show this procedure. So that was archiving and also documenting and showing. The documentation was also very important. But the main, the deep soul is in the process itself.
Saša, the outcomes.
Yes.
And everything that came out, you know, all these little collaborations that grew out of us bringing people that we sense that could actually really work together. So from universities, from artists, I'm really happy that Tomislav, for example, and SCCA were part of the program, because we all come from the same starting point, and now it's growing on its own. And that's something that we do quite well, I think.
Exactly. And it's like putting seeds in the soil also, like they grow and then you get new seeds and then they grow in other places. So it's in a way a network, but it's not. Network is like a virtual, sounds virtual, but artistic network is physical as well.
Well, I would really keep, thank you so much, Ayşegül. I would really keep, just to conclude, and I will stop now. Yeah. I will keep with René Russian's notion of network, careful knitting nets between people. I prefer that. Of course, we have to make it in one word, but maybe not. So that's what important to do.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you so much, Saša. And I am really hoping to host you here in İzmir, especially in our K2, this new breathing space, which you would love. So looking forward for the post-corona days that we could, you know, hug each other, spend time together. Day and night.
It's time to be back. It's really time to be back. And I must say, I'm really looking forward to be back next year. Let's do it after Corona.
Sounds great. Hope to see you. Thank you so much.
So thank you. Bye-bye, Ayşegül.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Saša.